On all three counts, Hunter Biden, the president's son, is found guilty after about 3 hours of deliberation by this jury. He is the first child of a sitting United States president to be found guilty in a criminal case. This probably does not come as a surprise given the length of time that the jury was deliberating and the volume of evidence that these jurors heard, over 6 days worth of testimony.
That's right. The allegedly politicized Justice Department went ahead with its prosecution of Hunter Biden for purchasing a weapon and lying on a form about his drug addiction as he was purchasing the weapon. And he's been found guilty of all three charges in that criminal case. Now, all of you must already know, but just in case, I want to cover my bases. Hunter Biden is Democratic President Joe Biden's son. And if the Justice Department is in fact politicized against Republicans, it would be weird to go after the president's son in order to find him guilty on these three charges. Now, this morning, the jurors found Hunter guilty of lying to a federally licensed gun dealer. Now, that was because he checked the wrong box and indicated deceptively that he was not using drugs during his time of that gun purchase. Also, he was found guilty of making a false claim on the application by saying that he wasn't a drug dealer, also illegally having that gun for 11 days before his girlfriend at the time found out that he had purchased the gun and then dispensed of the gun in a public trash can, which no one should ever do. That is a very bad idea. Now, what was discussed during the trial? Let's get to those details. Well, the prosecution devoted most of their time really highlighting how serious Hunter Biden's drug problem really was, and it wasn't pretty. And by the way, there are some Republicans who have come out today saying that they don't agree with how this case played out. And so stick around for those statements in just a moment. But let's get back to the prosecution, where jurors heard Hunter Biden's ex-wife and a former girlfriend testify about his habitual crack use and their failed efforts to help him get clean. Jurors saw images of the president's son bare-chested and disheveled in a filthy room and half-naked holding crack pipes. Jurors also watched video of his crack cocaine weighed on a scale. So there was plenty of evidence to indicate that he was using at the time of that gun purchase. Now, also keep in mind that originally there was a plea deal that Hunter Biden had accepted. So the trial really didn't need to come to this point, but the Republican Party insisted that the plea deal be rescinded and that he go through this trial. And so here we are dealing with the guilty verdict, not only Hunter Biden, but we're gonna hear from Joe Biden in just a bit in regard to his feelings on this.
Pausing here to deliver some honest truth as we do in our news coverage as well. TYT is facing challenges, guys, as the entire industry is. You know who could make the difference? You. If you hit the join button below, it's gonna make all the difference and keep us in business. We appreciate you, thank you.
Defense attorneys for Biden also tried to show that, no, I mean, look, sure, one could argue he was addicted to drugs at the time, but Hunter didn't think he was addicted to drugs. He didn't think he had a problem. They also claimed that Hunter was trying to turn his life around at the time and that he finished a rehab program by the end of August 2018. The defense called 3 witnesses, including Hunter Biden's daughter, Naomi, who told jurors that he seemed to be improving in the weeks before he bought the gun. But the prosecution wasn't buying it. I mean, it's their job not to buy it. It's their job to make the strongest case against the defendant here. And they noted that the day after Hunter Biden purchased the gun, he unfortunately texted Haley Biden, the widow of Beau Biden, that he was looking for a drug dealer. And then 2 days after the gun sale, he also texted Hallie the following: "I was sleeping on a car, smoking crack." So the defense's argument, as you can imagine, wasn't very persuasive to the jurors, considering all this evidence indicating that Hunter Biden was in fact still addicted to drugs. And look, this is my own personal opinion, and I just have to kind of get this off my chest. We are currently living in a country that has a horrible, deadly drug epidemic where over 100,000 people are dying of drug overdoses every year. And it is a tragedy of epic proportions, a tragedy that our elected lawmakers seem to have very little interest in doing anything about. It's a tragedy that they love to run campaigns on. They love to pretend like they care about the suffering of Americans. But once they're elected into office, they totally neglect this issue. And so, look, drug addiction is a real problem, and I think that we need to find real solutions for it. I do believe that maybe there's a place for harm reduction, but harm reduction alone has been a complete and utter failure in a lot of these big liberal cities. Criminalization of using drugs is also a huge failure. We need to look at models that actually work and get people the help that they desperately need, including rehabilitation, right? Drug rehab, which is really unattainable for a lot of people due to the costs of going to drug rehab. I had to get that off my chest because I think, demonizing people who are addicted to drugs is not the right way to deal with this problem, whether it has to do with Hunter Biden, whether it has to do with the, Americans that are struggling and grappling with this issue as we speak. Now, let's get to some of the reactions to the guilty verdict. Hunter Biden publicly responded to the guilty verdict against him today, saying he is more grateful for the love and support of his family than he is disappointed by the outcome. He also added that recovery is possible by the grace of God, or really good rehab, and I am blessed to experience that gift one day at a time. Now, Hunter's dad, President Joe Biden, has been a little bit more open about his views on this trial. And I think this is the area where, to give him credit, I know I've been incredibly critical toward Joe Biden, but I think you see his empathy, in particular when he's talking about his son and the struggles that he's faced. Biden did confirm that he would not pardon his son and will accept the result during a sit-down interview with David Muir over the weekend. Let's take a look.
Will you accept the jury's outcome, their verdict, no matter what it is?
Yes.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes.
So he did offer more than just those two words, but I thought it was important for everyone to see that. I think there's a pretty clear difference between Biden and Trump in regard to pardoning friends and family members. Trump would be willing to do it. In fact, in the past, he has done it. He has pardoned his friends, people like Steve Bannon, for instance. In this case, you have Joe Biden saying, no, I'm gonna go ahead and respect what the jurors decided here. And he also said, as I said last week, I am the president, but I'm also a dad. Jill and I love our son, and we are so proud of the man he is today. So many families who have had loved ones battle addiction understand the feeling of pride seeing someone you love come out the other side and be so strong and resilient in recovery. And that really is a difficult thing to do. And so I like that he mentioned that about Hunter Biden, and I hope Hunter Biden is able to remain sober. It's incredibly important that he does that. Now, he also says, President Biden does, as I also said last week, I will accept the outcome of this case and will continue to respect the judicial process as Hunter considers an appeal. Jill and I will always be there for Hunter and the rest of our family with our love and support. Nothing will ever change that. And so what comes next? What will the sentence look like? Well, I'm gonna tell you what he faces, but we all know that he's not gonna serve this amount of time in prison. So Hunter Biden faces up to 25 years in prison when he is sentenced by the judge. In this case, it's Judge Mary Ellen Norica. Though first-time offenders do not get anywhere near the maximum, and it's unclear whether she would give him time behind bars. So he is a first-time offender here. And so again, it is very unlikely that he's gonna be put away for 25 years. And I would venture to say pretty unlikely that he's gonna spend any time behind bars. Who knows, I could be wrong. Under federal sentencing guideline recommendations, he could be sentenced to over a year in prison, but the judge could sentence him to more or less time. Each count also carries a maximum fine of $250,000, $250,000. No sentencing date has been set yet. Now, legal experts say that Hunter Biden could potentially appeal. It's unclear whether he and his legal team intend to do that. And they argue that, look, there could be an appeal using a larger constitutional question regarding the purchase of guns and illegal drugs. So Tim Parlatore, who is a CNN commentator and former attorney for Donald Trump, pointed to a specific case, the United States v. Daniels. So in that case, the 5th US Circuit Court of Appeals struck down a decades-old law barring users of illegal drugs from possessing firearms. And by the way, keep in mind that the way the law is written right now, there is no distinction between hard drugs and drugs like marijuana, right? So if you are a regular user of marijuana, if you're looking to purchase a gun, you could be prosecuted similar to how Hunter Biden was prosecuted if you lie on that form and indicate that you are not using any illicit drugs. So consider that. I think that that is a huge problem. And I think that it's also been incredibly difficult for Republicans to celebrate the prosecution of Hunter Biden, because remember, they're huge Second Amendment advocates who actually want to loosen laws in order to make it easier to purchase guns. I mean, that is one of their rallying cries. It's something that's oftentimes included in their campaign platforms. So to suddenly, want to be super tough on a politician's son because he purchased a gun while he was in the midst of an addiction, I think kind of goes against their typical narrative. But there are some politicians who have already spoken out and said that maybe this wasn't the right way to go, guys. And I'm talking about Republican politicians. So let's start off with Matt Gaetz, who simply tweeted the following: "The Hunter Biden gun conviction is kind of dumb, to be honest." Yeah, it definitely is kind of dumb. And later, Republican/Libertarian Congressman Thomas Massey said something similar, mostly because of the fact that he is one of the few principled politicians in Congress. I might disagree with him on a lot of things, but he means what he says, and he seems to want to be as honest as possible with his constituents. And so he is a huge gun advocate, and he doesn't think that this was the right process for Republicans to pursue. And look, let's just keep it real. This is obviously a politically motivated prosecution. I think most ordinary people wouldn't be prosecuted for this and wouldn't be investigated for something like this. But as Republicans like James Comer were trying real hard to incriminate or implicate Joe Biden in criminality, their starting off point was to pick on Hunter Biden. And they didn't end up getting any goods on Joe Biden. They haven't found a shred of evidence of Joe Biden engaged in any wrongdoing, but they wanted to be super tough on crime when it came to Hunter Biden. So there you have it. We'll see how it all plays out. Again, we don't know whether he's going to serve any time behind bars, and we don't even have a sentencing date yet, but we will fill you all in as we get more details on this story and the possible sentence.
If you enjoyed this video, that's because of our members. They make us independent, they make us strong, and they make us honest. Become a member today by hitting the join button below.